Hello, my beautiful souls. It's me today, back to a solo episode. I just want to tell you how thrilled I am at the response to this series on joy. Like I told you, I think in my first solo episode about the series on joy, I was called to do it. I kept hearing them, in my mind, in my spirit that this is something that we need to talk about. And I kept thinking, wow, this is a bad time to be talking about it. It feels so out of alignment. And then I was reminded in my daily life, and then through these incredible interviews that I've been fortunate to be able to do, that it is more important now than ever to lean into joy and the impact that it has on our own lives and then on the lives of those around us with the ripple effect always in mind for me in my business and my life in just who I am. So I am coming back to you today with just a couple of things I wanted to connect into this series. And that is a little bit about what Stephanie talked about in my last episode. It would be what Awakening to Joy Part 3. And it was about the connection between gratitude and joy. And the more I thought about that and the more I lean into that, I realize how closely related they are. Now, we talked a little about in that interview about the connection between the two, and it's really about vibrational frequency and energetic frequency. And you know that I talk about that a lot and how it's so important to keep our energy and our frequency high. And gratitude and joy on the scale of frequencies, there's, the escalation of the level of feeling in our body and the relative connection to the frequency and energy. And gratitude and joy are at the top of that scale as opposed to shame and fear and the things that are at the bottom and the lower end of the scale. So connecting the two makes a lot of sense when you think about it. If they're too high frequency feelings slash emotions slash experiences, then it makes good sense that they're connected at that higher end of the frequency. And if you think about it, like when you're grateful and you're leaning into gratitude, that could be gratitude in the moment, it could be gratitude as a practice. It's the actual leaning in and living into that sense of gratitude, however you do that, whenever you do that. Isn't it almost always accompanied by a feeling of joy or a feeling that we could say, it's a feel good feeling, even if you don't want to call it joy? It's at that level of just like, deep breath and how fortunate am I? Like, what an incredible moment, what an incredible experience, whatever it is that you're feeling grateful for. And then that connected feeling is almost always joyful. So I want to encourage you to do it both ways. When you're feeling grateful and you're leaning into that moment, that experience of gratitude, take another breath and think, wow, this feels great. Link it to that positive feeling of joy. It does a couple of things. Number one, it expands and extends that experience, if you will, and it connects in your brain and in your spirit and in your heart together the feeling of gratitude and joy so that when you do it the next time, it's more easily connected. And you do it the next time and it's more easily connected. Like a muscle, it gets better and easier with more frequent use. So I want to encourage you to do that. And then the reverse is true, right? When you're feeling joyful, you are just at a moment that you're just feeling joyful. Stop. Lean into that moment. And I think I've said this before in previous episodes, but lean into that moment, that feeling, that expansion that you're feeling in that moment. And then take a breath and feel the gratitude that you are experiencing for that feeling of joy. Again, expanding and extending the impact of those moments. over time, they can become an experience in themselves, which is what I encourage you to do. And it's not easy for us. We're humans and we're living in this human world and we're living in this fast-paced, technology-driven world and culture right now where everything is about instant gratification and how fast can we get it. And oh my gosh, the internet goes down for a second. I'm guilty of all of this too, people. So I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. This is all of us. I really believe at one form or another, in one way or another. The internet goes down for a second and we're like, oh my gosh, losing our minds. So I encourage all of us, myself included, to remember to slow down. I get in these modes, and I'm sure we all do for different purposes and in different ways, right? Different experiences in our life. I get into these modes where I am so focused on something. Like right now, I am getting ready for a small mastermind group and creating a one-on-one coaching program to help women leaders bring their vision to life for 2026. So I am all in on that. Like I am all in on that so much so that I forgot that I needed to have a podcast episode recorded. And so this morning I've been diving in for hours on this coaching program and mastermind that I'm doing. And I am so into it and so loving it that I am just focused. And I have this pressure of deadlines and getting things done and, the ever present perfectionism and wanting to make sure that I'm going to make the maximum impact and all of those things. And I have to remember during those moments and many others that I need to be present. I want to be present. Like I don't want to miss out on this process that I'm embodying and living into what I am working with you all on and what I'm working with my clients on is being present in the moment, slowing down so that we don't miss it. I'm going to say that again. We all can benefit from slowing down to be present so we don't miss it, whatever it is, the way that we can embody deeply gratitude and joy. And when let's call them less favorable feelings arise, those are the ones that we're quick to just smash down and like move on or try to. And I would also encourage you to lean into those because it seems that they are going to stick around and rear their presence and make their presence known, whether you make time for it or not. And it's almost always better to lean in when you have the opportunity, do the work, learn the lesson, hear the message, whatever it is that's trying to come up in those less than favorite feelings. So I would encourage you to do it for all of the things, right? Slow down and be present. It is such an interesting time that we're living in and confusing, can be overwhelming. The things that are going on in our country and our world, in translating those and the flow back into our lives and navigating all of those things and doing that as a woman who's, working, who is running a business, who is an executive, who is an at-home mom, who's present and leading in their community. And it takes time to step into how we want to show up amidst all of this. And I know it feels like one more thing to do, and it really isn't. It really is the grounding and the foundation of who we are and how we want to be present in our world. So tying it all back to the need to be present and linking that into our daily lives, linking it to being grateful, linking it to being joyful. And that raises our frequency up to the higher levels that I have talked about again and again. Because the higher we keep our own energies and frequencies, the more impact we make. People feel our energy. People take that energy and they share it. And it's that creates the ripples that I so often talk about. Because I believe we are not only here to do our work, which is whatever that is for each of us. We are also here to make ripples because of that work and create ripples because of that work. That is one of the things, one of my goals with this podcast is to help others gain empowerment and feel ready to make ripple worthy steps in their lives. It's the crux of what I do in all of my work, whether I'm working one on one, whether I'm working in a group, whether I'm working with a company. It's all about what are the ripples that get created from that work. Working with organizational leaders to help them structure and integrate what they want in terms of their business. That works from a business perspective, a culture perspective, and an energetic perspective. How do they want to show up as leaders? How do my individual clients want to show up in their businesses and their jobs? And how does that translate into these ripples? So I've gotten a little bit off topic with joy, but it all is connected in my mind. Like all of these things are connected in how we make our impact and show up in the world. One last thing I want to share is I was listening to Brene Brown being interviewed on a podcast. I love Brene Brown. I've probably mentioned her in the past. And she made an interesting comment on joy, which I thought was very, very accurate. Of course, it came from her, so of course it was accurate. But for me personally, I could identify with it. And this is paraphrasing, obviously, but basically, it was around the subject of joy and how joy may be one of the emotions and feelings that requires us to be most vulnerable. And I thought, what is that about? It feels like it should be easy. The next comments that she made just really, really resonated with me. So if you think about joy and if you come from an environment where there was some trauma or some disappointment in childhood or life, who hasn't, by the way, the joy can be dangerous and vulnerable because you feel like sometimes when you feel joy, you're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. There has to be a balance, right? In this equation. And I thought, wow, I really like had to rewind it and listen to it a couple of times because I thought that is our challenge, right? Is to trust in the joy, even when, slash, especially when we have been disappointed in the past, where we feel joyful and then something bad happens. Life is filled with both and all of the both ands. You know, I've done a whole episode on both and, multiple probably by now, but both and being able to sort through them and build on those that we want to take into our both and world on a repeated basis, like joy. Like we know we want more joy. We know we want that feeling of expansion, that high energy feeling that brings us to our best self, our best energetic self, because our energy and frequency is so high. So staying focused on that while knowing that, at least initially, we have to practice it over and over again, right, to strengthen that muscle. But knowing that we will build that muscle where joy feels comfortable and we're not feeling quite as vulnerable to the worry of something bad is going to happen, the other shoe's going to drop. And so I encourage you that if you feel resistant to feeling joy, that you explore that a little bit because I feel like that is something that I hadn't really thought of until I heard this particular podcast. And so, all of that to say is I want to make sure that we are not trying to spiritually bypass or be toxically positive. It's all about being real and being present in the moment with all of the things, right? It's not saying that joy is the only thing, and it's not saying that joy is needs to be fake or needs to be fake to be able to bring joy forth. It is all about being real and leaning into the joy. And I encourage you and I encourage everyone that I work with to find joy in every single day. And I mean, even and especially when it is not an easy day to do it, because that moment and that choice changes your ability to feel more joy. It's the muscle being strengthened, especially if it's challenging, right? If it takes a moment for you to reflect on your day, reflect on something that is happening in the moment and say, this is a joyful moment. That was a joyful moment. And leaning into feeling the gratitude around it and the connection to that moment. Someone smiles at you in the grocery store when you are not feeling it, right? Like you have had a day, you're stopping on the way home from a meeting, from work, from daycare, and you have to grab something that you need on the way home, and you're just done. You want to be home. And a kind person looks at you and it feels like they see you because you're feeling like so frantic. And they offer this smile, like they recognize that feeling and they offer this smile. And it makes you feel like you can take a breath. I know that happens to all of us at some time in our life. Even if your joy and gratitude is linked to something that supposedly feeling minor, it is still there. And that is what we need to connect with, even the smallest moments of joy in our lives. I am joyful and grateful that you're here, that you're listening to this podcast, that you continue to tell me how valuable it is to you, that you continue to share it with your friends, and you come back and listen for the next episode. That brings me joy. I am an analytics nerd and I get very happy when I see that you're listening to it. I get very happy when I hear from one of you about how this impacted you. And I just want you to know that you are why I do this. You are why I create this podcast. You are why I do the work that I do, because it's what I'm here for. It's the impact that I have been called to make, and it fills me with joy. I am sending you all so much love and the wish for clarity in your life through your eyes in seeing the joy and beauty around you. Big love, my beautiful souls. Until our next episode.